Hi, I'm Joellyn Zollman, your friendly local Jewish food historian and CBI member, here to talk to you today about a Passover Seder staple, gefilte fish. Whether you love it or hate it, gefilte fish is almost certainly part of your Passover memories, as it's a quintessential Ashkenazic holiday food. The question is, how and when did this happen? Who thought, let's grind up some fish and poach it? Yum! And furthermore, why do we keep doing it? Let's dive in like a pike or a carp and explore the history of gefilte fish. Ground boned fish first landed on Jewish plates in Talmudic times. Fish was a symbol of fertility and blessing to ancient Jews, and thus it was a treat for the Sabbath table. However, boning the fish fell into the category of work that was prohibited on Shabbat. Therefore, Jews removed the flesh from the bones before the holiday, chopped it up, mixed it with seasonings, and then prepared it in one of two ways. They either cooked it in broth or they stuffed it back into the fish skin and roasted it. This Sabbath and holiday recipe traveled with the Jewish people as they moved throughout the Roman Empire. Fun fact, this fish preparation was also popular with medieval Catholics who prepared it during Lent when meat was prohibited. We know this because the recipe shows up in a German cookbook from around 1350, and the preparation in that cookbook is referred to as Gefülten. That's the German word for stuffed. For Jews, they translated that word into Yiddish. The Yiddish word for stuffed is Gefilte. That's how we get the name gefilte fish. Gefilte fish means stuffed fish. What is the fish stuffed with? More fish. So medieval German Jews prepared their gefilte fish by first catching the fish. In their case, it was usually a pike. And then they separated the flesh from the bones, discarded the bones, chopped up the fish, and then mixed it with a filler. This was usually matzah meal or bread, something that would bind it and also stretch the meal. Then they added chopped onions, maybe some seasonings, and then they would stuff this whole ground fish, bread, onion mixture back into the fish skin and then roast the fish skin. By the 16th century, this process was simplified by some Ashkenazic cooks who eliminated this whole tedious stuffing process and just started to poach the chopped fish with the bread and the onions in a fish broth. Still, the name stuck. It had always been called gefilte fish, stuffed fish, so even though they weren't stuffing it anymore, they still continue to call it gefilte fish. Now, it will surprise exactly no one to learn that there were very strongly held Jewish opinions about how to best season your gefilte fish. In fact, scholars have drawn a line across Europe to denote exactly how this debate was divided. There were on one side of the line people who preferred their gefilte fish to be sweet, and on the other side of the line people who preferred their gefilte fish to be savory. So in Poland and the Ukraine, for example, they ate sweet gefilte fish seasoned with sugar. In Lithuania and Hungary, they preferred their gefilte fish to be savory with horseradish or seasoned with black pepper. This debate continues 3 centuries later, and perhaps it even happens at your own Passover table. So that's where gefilte fish comes from. That's the history of gefilte fish. Why does it endure? Like so many traditional Ashkenazic foods, the popularity of gefilte fish is linked to its economy. Gefilte fish was an inexpensive filling meal. You start with a very small fish, right? And then you take that fish, the meat from that fish, and you mix it with bread, with onions, with all kinds of cheaper food, and stuff it all back together. In this way, you can start with a very tiny fish and end up with a much larger meal. Today, the presence of gefilte fish is not so much motivated by economics as it is by memory and tradition. We stuff our bellies with so-called stuffed fish because the sight and the smell and the taste of gefilte fish link us to the Seder plates and the holiday tables of our own remembered Jewish past. Whether your grandmother had a carp in her bathtub or she bought Manischewitz in a jar from a supermarket shelf, she served a hearty portion of tradition on that little plate with a piece of lettuce and a dollop of horseradish. The great Yiddish writer Isaac Babel summed up the relationship between the Jewish people and gefilte fish in a 1918 essay on Jewish life in Petersburg like this, quote, "The old woman was meek and timorous and quiet as a mouse, but in her gefilte fish and in her fingers that prepared the samovar lay the history of the Jewish people, a true history with a hefty dose of peppery passion." So it turns out, gefilte fish is stuffed with Jewish history. I hope that you enjoy some, savory or sweet, on your Passover table this year.